The unexpected arrival, the galaxy was calm, as it had always been. The stars shone brightly, and the peaceful hum of the universe carried on without interruption. But that calm was about to be shattered. A new presence, something the galaxy had never seen before, was making its way through the vast emptiness of space. It began as a tiny, flickering signal. At first, it barely registered on the radars of the alien fleets scattered across the sector. They were used to picking up all kinds of strange readings, comets, space debris, the occasional passing asteroid, but this was different. The signal grew stronger, clearer, and soon it was undeniable in the distant corners of the galaxy, across various alien factions. Leaders and generals stared at their screens in confusion. Something was coming, something big, that the human warship had arrived. It emerged from a region of space previously thought to be empty, its form cutting through the darkness like a shadow. At first glance, it seemed like any other ship, but as the signal reached its full strength, the reality hit them. This was not just another ship. It was a warship, humanity's warship. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It was large, intimidating, and heavily armed. Its sleek, angular design made it seem as though it was built for destruction. The engines hummed with quiet power, and the lights on the ship blinked in rhythmic precision. There was no mistaking it. This was a force to be reckoned with. The news spread fast. A warship from Earth, of all places, was now a player in the galaxy's ongoing conflicts. No one had expected this. Humanity had always been seen as a backwater species, barely capable of space travel, let alone war. Yet here it was entering the heart of a region already embroiled in conflict. As the warship continued its journey, the galaxy's leaders and military forces scrambled to make sense of what was happening. Could this ship be a threat, or was it just another sign of humanity's slow rise in the universe? On the bridge of the warship, Commander Zara Miller stood in front of a massive display screen, her eyes scanning the view of the galaxy before her. Her crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and young recruits, were at their stations, waiting for her command. The tension was thick, almost tangible. "We've been detected," Lieutenant Jackson reported, his voice calm but his hands shaking slightly. "They're already sending out signals. They know we're here." Miller didn't move. She had expected this. What they didn't expect, however, was the speed at which the galaxy had noticed them. The human warship wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol, a message. "We knew they'd notice," Miller said quietly, her voice steady. "Prepare for incoming communications. Let's see how they respond." On the other side of the galaxy, the alien forces were in disarray. The Varnic Empire, known for its vast fleets and ruthless leadership, was the first to react. Admiral Koth, a battle-hardened commander who had led his species through countless wars, stared at the message on his console in disbelief. A human warship. He muttered to himself, "This can't be right." His crew, equally stunned, looked to him for guidance. The Varnic Empire had ruled this region of space for centuries, unchallenged by any race that could pose a true threat. Now, humanity, a species they had once dismissed, was forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. "They must be trying to make a statement," Koth said, regaining his composure. "All forces, prepare for potential hostilities. We'll need to keep our eyes on this." Meanwhile, other factions, including the aggressive Zothari and the cunning Nyrax, were making their own plans. What was this new ship? Who were these humans? And why were they entering the conflict zone at such a delicate time? Back aboard the human warship, Miller gave the order to send a message. It was brief but clear. We are here to claim our place. In the stars, stand down or face the consequences. The message was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. It was a bold declaration, one that shook the foundations of the region. The galaxy had known conflict, but it had never known a species like humanity. A species with the audacity to challenge the might of established empires. The Varnak Empire was the first to respond. A message flickered on Miller's console, a direct line to Admiral Koth. "This is your only warning, humans." Koth's voice boomed through the comms. "Turn back now, or face the full force of the Varnak Empire." Miller's lips curled into a faint smile. She had expected a response like this. She glanced over at Lieutenant Jackson, who was still staring at the screen, his face pale. "They've given us the warning," Miller said softly. "Now we'll give them a lesson they won't forget." The battle for the galaxy had just begun, and in that moment the universe knew one thing for sure. Humanity was no longer a mere spectator. They had entered the conflict zone, and nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk, the first encounter, the cold expanse of space, stretched endlessly around the human warship as it glided deeper into the heart of the conflict zone. Every inch of the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, watching this lone ship, its ominous presence casting a shadow over the battlefield. In the Varnak Empire's flagship, Admiral Koth paced back and forth, his mind racing. His species had conquered. Countless star systems, crushed rebellions, and defeated enemies much more powerful than these humans. But this warship was different. It wasn't just a ship, which was a symbol of defiance. "Admiral," came a voice from behind. "Commanders." His most trusted officer entered the bridge with a datapad in hand. "The humans are not backing down. They've sent a challenge. They are already in the conflict zone, and their weapons systems are active. We cannot ignore them any longer." Koth stopped pacing and turned to face Zahn. The reality of the situation was finally settling in. The galaxy's power structure was about to shift, and Koth didn't know how he felt about being caught in the middle of it. "We'll deal with this threat as we always do," Koth growled, his fingers tapping against the arm of his chair. "Prepare the fleet. It's time to show them what happens when you step into the Varnak's domain." But even as he issued the orders, a small part of him couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just another enemy to be wiped out. Something about the human warship, its audacity, its purpose was different. Koth didn't know yet, but this warship, these humans, were not going to be so easily defeated. Back on the human warship, Commander Miller stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. She could feel the weight of the universe pressing down. On her shoulders, every move she made, every decision she took, could mean the difference between humanity's survival and its obliteration. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. Lieutenant Jackson, his face grim, turned to her. "Admiral Koth has issued a warning. He's mobilizing his fleet. The Varnak are preparing for battle. They're taking this seriously." Miller nodded. She had known this would happen. The Varnak Empire was powerful, and its leader was not one to back down from a challenge. But humanity had come a long way, and this was their chance to prove that they weren't just another species to be bullied by the galaxy's elites. "Are we ready?" she asked, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We're ready," Jackson replied. "Weapons, systems online, shields fully charged. We have the element of surprise." A quiet murmur ran through the crew. They were nervous, but they were also ready. They had trained for this moment. They knew the stakes. This was not just a battle for territory, it was a battle for survival, for humanity's place among the stars. The warship's engines hummed as it began to change course, heading toward the Varnak fleet. The crew could feel the shift in the air as the tension mounted, as they prepared to face their first true test. This wouldn't be like any battle they had fought before. The galaxy wasn't ready for them, and they had no intention of turning back. Across the stars, the alien fleets began to assemble. The Zothri and Nyrax had taken notice, their own warships slowly drifting into position, their leaders communicating in hushed tones, unsure of how to react. They had no loyalty to the Varnak, but they knew that if one faction could crush humanity, it would be in their best interest to join the fight. But humanity wasn't just a passing threat. They had crossed into the heart of the galaxy, into the conflict zone, and that wasn't something easily overlooked. "We'll attack first," Koth's voice boomed over the Varnak command channels. "We'll show them the cost of defying us." The Varnak fleet powered into motion, sleek, deadly ships cutting through space with terrifying precision. They were faster, more aggressive, and ruthless in combat. But Commander Miller wasn't intimidated. She had something they didn't: the element of surprise. "We're going to make them regret this," Miller said under her breath, her fingers brushing the control panel. She gave a final look to her crew. "Hold steady. We're here to change everything." Suddenly, the Varnak fleet closed in. The humans and aliens were on a collision course, both sides racing toward a clash that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The Varnak opened fire, a torrent of deadly energy beams heading straight for the human warship. But the humans were ready. The warship's shields flared to life, absorbing the first volley of fire. The ship rocked from the impact, but it held steady. Miller's crew cheered in triumph, but their victory was short-lived. The Varnak fleet was not done yet. "Brace for impact," Jackson shouted, but Miller was already 5 steps ahead. "Return fire. Full power to the weapons. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." The ship's cannons roared to life, firing back at the Varnak ships with deadly accuracy. Energy blasts lit up the void, and the Varnak fleet was thrown into chaos as they tried to react to the sudden shift in the battle. As the two fleets clashed, the stars seemed to shimmer with the intensity of their conflict. The galaxy had never witnessed a battle like this, one that would forever alter the balance of power. In the midst of the chaos, Koth realized something that chilled him to his core. Humanity was not backing down. This was just the beginning. The humans' real intentions. The battle raged on as the human warship clashed with the Varnak fleet. The stars around them flickered like distant beacons, the constant flashes of laser fire illuminating the darkness of space. Humanity's warship was holding its ground, proving its might, but the Varnak forces were relentless, determined to destroy this new threat before it could spread its influence further across the galaxy. Commander Miller stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the battle unfolding on the view screen. The Varnak fleet, once an unstoppable force, was now struggling to keep up with the tactics and firepower of humanity's warship. But Miller knew this wasn't just about the battle at hand. It was about sending a message. "This is more than just a fight for survival," Miller murmured, her voice barely audible as she studied the Varnak ships weaving in and out of the crossfire. "This is humanity claiming its place." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jackson, glanced over at her, his expression conflicted. "But what do we really want, Commander? Do we just want to fight, or is there something more we're aiming for?" Miller turned to him, her eyes hardening with resolve. We want the galaxy to see us as more than just a footnote in history. We're here to prove that humanity deserves to stand among the most powerful species in the universe. We will make them understand that we are not to be underestimated. The Varnak, however, were not foolish. As the battle dragged on, they began to adapt, bringing in reinforcements and pushing the human warship to its limits. But Miller had prepared for this. She had anticipated their every move. Switch to evasive maneuvers, Miller ordered calmly, her fingers moving swiftly over the control panel. The human warship veered to the left, narrowly avoiding a direct hit from the Varnak's largest weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire fleets with a single blast. The ship's engines roared to life, and it launched itself into a series of unpredictable movements, evading every attack with deadly precision. Jackson couldn't help but admire the commander's tactics. "We're actually outmaneuvering them," he said, a sense of awe in his voice. "How are we doing this?" Miller smiled, though there was no humor in her expression. This ship wasn't designed just for war, it was designed to inspire fear. Across the galaxy, the news of the human warship's abilities spread like wildfire. The Varnak fleet was in chaos. The Nyrax and Zothri forces, watching from the sidelines, were beginning to take notice. Their leaders, sitting in their war councils, debated whether they should join the fray or stay neutral. They couldn't ignore the power that the humans were showcasing, but they also didn't want to risk angering the Varnak Empire by intervening. Admiral Koth, his rage mounting, stood at the front of his command center, glaring at the images of the human warship on his screens. It was clear that the humans were unlike anything he had ever encountered before. This was no simple skirmish, it was a challenge to his authority, to the very foundation of the empire he had built. "Contact the Varnak High Command," Koth barked. "We need reinforcements. We cannot lose this battle." His eyes flashed with anger as the transmission crackled to life. A voice on the other end responded, "Admiral Koth, your request is acknowledged. Reinforcements are on their way." But even as the reinforcements began to gather, Koth felt a gnawing doubt. Could they truly defeat the human warship, or had they underestimated the power of this strange species? Meanwhile, Miller was already planning her next move. She knew that the longer the battle dragged on, the more the Varnak would adapt. If they were to truly secure humanity's position in the galaxy, they needed to end this confrontation decisively. "Prepare to launch the Decimator," Miller ordered. "It's time we show them what humanity is really capable of." The Decimator was a weapon like no other. A massive energy cannon, capable of wiping out entire fleets in one shot. It had been humanity's secret weapon, kept hidden in the depths of the warship, ready for this very moment. Jackson looked up in disbelief. "Are you sure, Commander? We're still taking fire from the Varnak launching the Decimator now could. It's the only way to send a message that they'll never forget," Miller interrupted, her voice steady and filled with determination. "Humanity is not here to play games. We're here to win." The ship's massive cannon powered up, the hum of energy resonating through the hull. It charged with terrifying intensity, its brilliance blinding against the darkness of space. The crew watched in awe as the Decimator readied itself for the shot that would change the course of the galaxy. Just as Miller prepared to give the final command, a new message flashed across her screen. A direct communication from the Nyrax. "Humanity," the voice on the screen was calm, cold. "We've watched you. You have made your point. But know this, we are watching you closely. Do not think that you have won this battle. There will be consequences." Miller hesitated for a moment, staring at the Nyrax's stern expression. She had expected this. But this wasn't just about the Nyrax. This was about the entire galaxy understanding that humanity was not a species to be trifled with. "We will deal with them in time," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Right now, we need to focus on ending this fight." With a single motion, Miller gave the order. The decimator fired. The energy burst ripped through the darkness, a blinding flash of light as it collided with the Varnak fleet. The explosion was deafening, and the shockwave sent ripples through space itself. The Varnak ships that had been in the line of fire were obliterated in an instant, their remains scattering. Across the void, the galaxy would never be the same. The battle for the galaxy, the aftermath of the decimator's devastating strike, sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Varnak fleet had been decimated, and those few ships that had survived were left in disarray, struggling to maintain any semblance of order. The once feared empire was now reeling, its pride shattered in the blink of an eye by a single human warship. On board the human warship, Commander Miller stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes locked onto the vast expanse of space. Before her, the quiet hum of the ship was the only sound, but she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This battle wasn't just about defeating the Varnak. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy that humanity was no longer a small, insignificant species. "Commander," Lieutenant Jackson's voice broke the silence. "The Varnak fleet is retreating. They're pulling back from the conflict zone." Miller didn't respond immediately. Her mind raced with the implications. The Varnak Empire, the largest military power in the galaxy, had just been humiliated by humanity. But this victory was not the end, it was only the beginning. "Prepare for the next phase," Miller said, her voice cold with determination. "We need to make sure the rest of the galaxy understands that humanity is here to stay." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the response to humanity's actions was swift. The Zothari and Nyrax factions, both of whom had been watching from a distance, now found themselves at a crossroads. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted dramatically, and they knew they had to act quickly to secure their own futures. In the Zothari War Council, General Vrek looked at the holoscreen where the image of humanity's warship flashed, his sharp, angular face twisted with a mixture of anger and fear. "The humans have done the impossible," Vrek growled. "They've destroyed the Varnak. We cannot let them continue their conquest." The Zothari were known for their ruthless nature and their ability to adapt in battle. But even Vrek, with his decades of experience, could not deny the magnitude of humanity's victory. The Zothari were powerful, but they had never faced an enemy like this. "We will not wait for them to come to us," Vrek decided. "We will meet them head-on. The humans must be crushed before they gain any more power." Elsewhere, in the Nyrax council chambers, the mood was one of cautious contemplation. The Nyrax had always been opportunistic, preferring to watch and wait for the right moment to strike. But this situation was different. Humanity had proven itself capable of unimaginable destruction, and their ambitions were only beginning. "We've made our move," the Nyrax leader, Queen Terra, said, her voice as cold as space itself. "Now, we must see if humanity will fight back or if they will seek alliances. Either way, we must be ready." Back on the human warship, Miller received the news of the alien factions' growing unease. She stood before a large, transparent display screen showing the vast expanse of space and the different alien fleets regrouping. "We've made our mark," Miller said quietly, her gaze never leaving the screen. But now we're about to face the true challenge. These empires won't let us take control without a fight. But we've proven that we can win. We just need to keep pushing forward. Jackson walked up to her, his expression tense. The Varnok are defeated, Commander, but they're not the only ones we have to worry about. The Zothari and Nyrax won't just sit back and watch. If they join forces, they could overwhelm us. Miller turned to him, her eyes sharp. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. We don't just fight for victory, we fight for our place in the galaxy. If they want war, we'll give it to them. But they'll never be able to outthink us. She glanced at the crew members around her. Prepare for the next phase. We're going to need everything we've got. The human warship's engines roared to life once more, propelling it deeper into the conflict zone. The battle was far from over, and Miller knew that this was only the beginning of a war that would define humanity's future. But this time, humanity wasn't fighting for survival, it was fighting for supremacy. As the ship moved forward, a massive signal blinked on Miller's screen. A transmission from the Nyrax. Miller pressed a button, and the message came through. Queen Terra's face appeared on the screen, her eyes cold and calculating. Humanity, Terra began, you've proven yourself dangerous, but you've also proven yourself arrogant. You think you can take this galaxy by force. But you've forgotten one thing. Power is not just about strength, it's about alliances. We, the Nyrox, will not bow to you. We will stand against you. Prepare for war. Miller didn't flinch. I've never underestimated power, Queen Terra, she replied. But we have something you'll never have, unity. Humanity will not back down, and will prove to the galaxy that we belong here. The transmission ended, and Miller turned to her crew, her gaze unyielding. We will not just fight for survival, she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. We will fight for everything.